Hi guys, in my last video I showed you how to create a library, how to create a temporary dataset, and what are the attributes of the variables and so today I want to move ahead and I want to discuss that how do we read a raw data file, an external file in SAS dataset, and create a SAS dataset basically. So suppose I want to create a data out of a raw data which I have as I'm going to create a data, I would be writing a keyword called data. This is basically used whenever I need to create a data set in SAS. After that, whenever I write a data, I need to I'm supposed to write a data set name over here, which should follow three naming convention rules. This dataset name cannot be more than 32 characters. It cannot start with a number and it cannot contain any special character except underscore. So I should follow all three naming convention rule and keep any name of my data, so or assign any name to my dataset. So let's say I'm just giving test. After that, as I am creating a data, I have to create variables. Let's say if I'm just creating an Excel file and with some rows and column, and I just write numbers, blah 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 blah. So if I have written some numbers over here and I do not give any variable name or any column name on top of these like columns, I do not tell what it is meaningless, right? Similarly, when I'm creating a data set, I have to create variable like which is necessary. So for that I have to write a system of or a keyword called input, in which I define the variables. So it is name, age and salary. Let me just write three variables over here. Now after input in SAS, we have one option called datalines, which is for practice purpose. Okay, so usually it is not widely used in the industry, but for beginners you can write your raw data part under the data line statement. So let me write a very small data. Okay, so this is what I've written over here. Now what it is doing, this data line should be the last part of my data set, data step basically. Input is telling what all variable I'm going to create in my data. So when I run this program, as I've not defined any library name with the data set, so this test is going to be created inside the work library, and when I open it, I do see some values, but name is coming as missing. What is the reason why this name is coming as missing? So as I told you in my last session, numeric is the default data type. When I am defining the variables over here, all variable by default became numeric. A numeric variable can only read numbers. It cannot read character value, which is here. So I have to define this name as character. So that's why I've written a $sign after the variable name. Now this name would become character, and then age and salary would become numeric because I need to read numbers. But if I define age as character, then I won't be facing any issue, because under the character variable I can read any kind of data. The only thing would be this 78 would be a character value rather than a numeric value. So this time when I just run this code, I get name under the name column. The same thing, let's say if I have this data in a raw data file. Okay, so I just create a raw data file in one of the location in the desktop, let's say I just create a raw data file over here. So I guess this is the file, not this one, I'm sorry. Yeah, so suppose this is the file I want to read. What can I do, or what should I do to access it inside SAS? What I would do, I would just copy the path of this. I would write a data again, a data keyword, which is just to create a data, then the name. So this time let's say test2. I would use a keyword called infile, where I would define the path of the file basically. So I would write the path. This is not the complete path because it doesn't contain the file name. Within this directory, which file I need to read, I have to write here, and that was data.txt. Let me confirm whether the file name was same or not. So I went here, I checked the, yes, it is data.txt, not data, I'm sorry. So this one is my data.txt, no, not this one. I want to read data2.txt, yes. So I should provide the correct file name over here. Otherwise, if I provide the wrong file which does not contain the correct data which I want to read, or which doesn't exist, my program will throw me an error. Now, as I'm creating data, again I have to define the variable name. So I would be writing here, let's say name, age and salary, and run. This is the end of my program. This is called end of step boundary basically. Now when I run this program, I see my window test2 got created. Again the same problem, name is coming as missing because default data type is numeric and I didn't define it as a character. So I just wrote it. When I ran it again and see test2, yeah, my values are appearing properly. Okay, so this is a very basic. We would be using this step so that I can write everything inside the code and it is visible to you guys. Now the question comes, how SAS is reading these values, how pointer is moving across, or how SAS knows that only this string, only these two characters should come under name, this should come under age, and this should come under salary. So we start. What happens, by default the pointer is located at the beginning of the raw data file, which is the first column. Now this style of input is called line input, through which pointer would be moving line by line inside my raw data. So it starts from here and it moves one by one, and it would be moving until it gets a delimiter. So what is a delimiter? The delimiter is which delimits two values, which decides the limit for two different values. Here space is separating these two values, that's why space is called a delimiter. Space is default delimiter as well, so I don't need to define it separately. Now what happens, it starts from 1, it reads second, and the moment it gets a delimiter it stops and send this value to name. It comes back, start from wherever it stopped last time, again it keep on moving, read the value, and again the moment it gets a delimiter it stops, it understands that the value is finished and send this value to age. Come back, read that value again. This time it doesn't get a delimiter, but the record is ended. So when the record ends, then also it considers that the value is finished. So there are two cases in which SAS would treat that a value is finished. One, when it gets a delimiter. Second, when it reach at the end of the record. So now after reading this, it sends here to the salary, and after reading the one record of the raw data completely, it throws the output to the output data set, which is test. And the same thing it would be performing on record number 2 and record number 3. Alright, So this was one example. What would it do if I have multiple delimiter inside my data? Okay, like this. So there is no consistency among the delimiter I have in my data. Again, SAS would, if I run this program, I get to see I'm getting the same result. Okay, so let me run it again. So in the log I get to see, yes, it read work.test has 3 observations. Okay, alright. So I went here. What happened? It started from here, it gets a delimiter, stops and sends the value to name. It comes back, delimiter are not part of value, so it is keep on ignoring delimiter, and once it gets a value again, it reads it and sends it to the variable for which it is finding the value. Again it comes back, it ignores all the delimiter, and it is keep on finding the value till the time it doesn't reach the end of the record. But before that it finds the value in this case, so it sends this 7800 inside the salary and then throws the output for each record. So if I'm using line input, multiple delimiter in the default scenario doesn't make any difference. Now let's do one more example. I just give like single spaces between the values. However, I add one more value over here. Let's say grade. Okay. Now, what would happen if I run this program? The thing is, it would read name from here, age as in 78, salary as 7800. After that, there is no variable written, so it would be ignoring this. Or a shortcut can be like a rule which you can keep in your mind. After reading the value for last variable defined in the input statement, the pointer moves to the next line and it throws the output. So it ignores all the value which is written after that. Like it read this value, and whatever is written after that, it would ignore it basically and just move to the next line. Alright, so when I will run this program and see, yeah, I do not get any value, or grade is nowhere read or nowhere in my output dataset. Similarly, suppose let's say remove these values, and suppose I do not have this value and I add one more record over here. Now what would happen? So as I have defined earlier, this record would come as it is, because name would come under AA, 78 would come under age, 7800 would come under salary. After reading the last variable, the pointer goes to the next one. It reads the value for name, DB, it gets a delimiter, stops, it finds the value for age. Now what happens? It doesn't find the value for salary in the same record. So in its default nature, when it doesn't find the value for all the variables defined in the input statement, the pointer moves to the next line and tries to find the value, and whatever it gets, it reads it as the value of the variable which is not read so far, which like for which it didn't get the value so far. So what would happen in this case? It reads BB as name, age as 85, and CC as salary. However, it would again ignore 15 and 500. Why? Because as I told you earlier, after reading the last variable, the pointer moves to the next line. It ignores whatever is written after that. So that's why the second record would be BB 85, salary is a numeric variable, it gets a character, so that's why it would be a dot, and then after that it ignores these two values and moves to the next line and read DD15 and 2000. So when I run this program, I get to see the same thing. Okay. Oh, or what we can do, if we really want to see what is coming under salary, we just make or define salary as character and run it and see, yeah, CC is coming under salary. So this is a problem basically. So if this is how SAS is going to read the data, I cannot read the data correctly. But there is a solution, and the solution is Missover. It's a keyword which we can only define inside the infile statement. So I would write an infile. However, the infile statement we use basically for referencing a file path, but here or we can say we use infile statement when we are reading an external file. However, here I am reading the data from a data line statement, so I can write data lines and then Missover. Now when I run this, I get a missing value for salary. Why? Because Missover is helping me, or Missover will not let the pointer go to the next line. How does it work basically? Let me explain. So what happens if you have written Missover, let's say, and the pointer doesn't find the value for any of the variable defined in the input statement, but the default nature is pointer will move to the next line to find the value. However, as we have defined Missover, it will not let the pointer go to the next line to find the value. So if it doesn't find the value, it will assign a missing value to the variable and then pointer goes to the next line. That's why I am getting missing value for salary. Let's do one more example. This time I remove age and I assign salary over here. So before I show you the output, it would be great if you pause this video and you try to write the output of this. Now let me tell you what happened. When I ran this program, this 7800 would come under age, and again salary would be blank. If I run this, yes, this is happening. Why? Because it read BB, then it is keep on ignoring all the spaces, and 7800 would come under age. Then as it reaches the end of the record, but it didn't find any value for salary, it will try to go to the next line, but Missover option will not let it go to the next line, and that's why what it would do, it would assign a missing value to salary, and then the pointer will go to the next line or move to the next line. So this Missover option is only helpful if the value is missing at the end of the record, not in the middle of the record. Let's do one more example. So suppose there are two values missing. I don't have value for age and salary over here. What would happen? It would read BB as name, and it doesn't find the value for age, so it will try to move to the next line, but just because of this option which I have defined over here, it won't be able to. So it will assign a missing value for age and the same to the salary, and after assigning the values to both the variable, then it can move to the next line. So that is what Missover option is. If someone asks you, explain Missover, you can say if the value for the variable is missing for the if the value is missing for the last variable or last couple of variable in sequence, I can assign Missover option just to overcome that issue. So that is what about Missover option and today's video. I am going to end it right now, and in the next video I'll be explaining how can we resolve the issue in line input if I have something missing at the middle of the record, like here I don't have age over here. Till the time, wait for my next video. Thank you so much.